I had always known Mama Rose was different. While other grandmothers baked cookies or knitted sweaters, she kept journals, buried notes, and whispered stories about survival in the shadows. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. Don't forget to like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to this channel. Now back to my story. She raised me after my mom died, never talking much about the past, just pressing a kiss to my forehead and saying, "One day, Jada, you'll understand." I thought I would feel lost when she passed, but I didn't feel lost, I felt watched. The day of the will reading, the air felt too still. My Uncle Terence, Aunt Linda, and their son Sean filled the lawyer's office with stiff silence. None of us had spoken since the funeral. We all knew something was coming, we just didn't know what. Mr. Caldwell, the family attorney, cleared his throat. "Mama Rose's will is unconventional," he said, glancing at me. "To her granddaughter, Jada Campbell, she leaves her entire estate, the house, the land, her savings, and any remaining personal assets." A beat of stunned silence followed. I blinked. "What?" Terence hissed. Linda leaned forward. "Excuse me, that's got to be a mistake." "It's not," Caldwell replied. "The documents are signed and witnessed." Mama Rose was of sound mind. Terence's face turned red, and Sean, usually smug and quiet, just stared at me like he was calculating something. "You mean that little girl gets everything?" Linda spat. "She's not a little girl anymore," Caldwell replied. "She's 22, and she was her legal guardian." I felt like I was sinking. Not because I was afraid of them, but because something in Mama Rose's decision didn't sit right. "Why me? Why leave them nothing?" Sean leaned in, voice cold. "Enjoy it while it lasts. Jada, you don't know what you're sitting on." And for the first time in years, I remembered one of Mama Rose's bedtime whispers. "Sometimes what you inherit isn't just money. Baby, sometimes it's a war." The keys to Mama Rose's house felt heavier than they should. I hadn't stepped foot on the porch since the funeral, too afraid of what I'd feel. The air in her old cottage, nestled between rustling pines and the long-forgotten Georgia dirt road, still smelled of lavender and old books, but something else lingered too, something unsettled. As I stepped inside, I noticed things were off. Furniture had been moved. A cabinet door was left ajar. The back door lock looked scratched, like someone had tried forcing it. I placed my overnight bag down, suddenly aware of how alone I was out here. Or maybe not as alone as I thought. On the coffee table sat a shoebox with my name on it, in Mama Rose's handwriting. "Jada, open when you're ready." My hands trembled as I opened the box. Inside were old photos, a faded locket, and several handwritten letters bundled with a ribbon. On top was a note. "If they're angry you got the house, it's because they know what's buried with it. You're stronger than you think. Baby girl, start in the attic." The attic. Of course it had to be the attic. The last time I'd gone up there, I was 12, terrified of shadows and cobwebs. Now I wasn't scared, but I was uneasy. I grabbed the flashlight and slowly made my way up the creaky stairs. Stacks of old trunks and crates lined the dusty room, and at the far end was a weathered chest that hadn't been touched in years. Inside, I found more than I bargained for. Legal documents, property maps, letters from a name I didn't recognize. H. Easton. One letter stood out, dated 1996. "Rose, we had a deal. If this land ever gets into that girl's hands, we're both done. Burn this." My chest tightened. Who was H. Easton? What deal? And why had Mama Rose kept it? Before I could process more, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. "You need to get out of that house, Jada. You're not safe." Then the call cut. I stared at the phone, the screen now black, the call history already erased. I hadn't even seen a number, just unknown caller. My fingers trembled as I set the phone down. Was someone watching me, or was it just a prank? I went back to the attic and stared at the contents of the chest. Whoever this H. Easton was, he wasn't bluffing. The tone in the letter dripped with menace. Mama Rose had obviously feared him, yet she kept the letters instead of burning them. I tucked them into my backpack, determined to dig deeper. Downstairs, I pulled out the property map from the shoebox. The edges were brittle, and the corners curled with age. But something caught my eye, an X marked behind the barn. Next to it was scribbled, in Rose's looping handwriting, "Sun hits the truth at noon." Cryptic, but Mama Rose always spoke in riddles when things were dangerous. My gut told me I had to follow it. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house felt amplified. At one point, I thought I heard footsteps on the porch, but when I peeked through the curtains, no one was there. Still, I double-locked the doors and kept a kitchen knife by the bed. By morning, I had decided to call my best friend. "Deja, She was the only person I trusted completely. You really stayed there alone? She asked over FaceTime, her brows furrowed. Girl, that place gives Scooby-Doo haunted mansion vibes. I half laughed. I know, but Mama Rose left clues. I think there's something buried here. Literally. Deja's eyes widened. Like treasure. No, like secrets. She didn't hesitate. I'm coming this weekend. But before we could end the call, a loud knock rattled the front door. I jumped. It was Sean. He stood there, sunglasses on, arms crossed. You digging through things that don't belong to you. I kept the door shut. I inherited everything, remember, I said. A smile curled on his lips. That includes the enemies too, sweetheart. Then he walked away, slow and confident, like he knew something I didn't. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't about land. This was about legacy. And someone was willing to kill to bury the truth. I waited until noon. The sun was high, casting sharp lines across the yard. Just like the note said, sun hits the truth at noon. I grabbed the map and made my way past the overgrown garden, down to the old barn that had been falling apart since before I was born. Behind the barn, wild grass rose to my knees. The X on the map was near the old oak tree, the one Mama Rose used to sit under and hum old gospel songs to herself. I stood at its base and turned in slow circles, waiting for a clue, anything. Then I saw it. A patch of soil darker than the rest, freshly turned earth. Like someone had been digging here recently or trying to cover something up. I dropped to my knees and started pulling at the dirt with my hands, heart racing. After a few minutes, my fingers scraped metal. I uncovered a rusted tin box wrapped in plastic. Inside, old photographs, another letter, and a flash drive. My hands shook as I turned the letter over. If you're reading this, you found what they all wanted. Don't trust Terrence. Don't trust Linda. And for God's sake, never trust Sean. It was signed, he. I froze, H. Easton. Why would he be warning me? That evening, Deja finally arrived, pulling up in her beat-up Toyota with snacks and a suspiciously large suitcase. You found what now? She asked after I dumped the tin box's contents onto the kitchen table. I held up the flash drive. We need to see what's on this. She plugged it into her laptop, and we waited, breath held. It was video. Grainy footage of my grandmother, Mama Rose, arguing with someone in the living room. Her voice was calm, but her words cut like knives. I told you, if you ever come near Jada, I'll bury you myself. Then the camera turned, and there he was. Sean. Young, maybe 17, eyes wild, voice trembling. You said it didn't matter who the father was. The screen went black. Deja's mouth dropped open. I couldn't breathe. What the hell did he mean who the father was? She whispered. I didn't have an answer. But suddenly, the fight over Mama Rose's will made a lot more sense. This wasn't about property. This was about blood. And someone had lied for decades. The silence after the video ended was deafening. Deja and I sat motionless, both staring at the black screen as if it might spring back to life and give us more answers. What did he mean? Deja asked again, her voice softer now. Who the father was? I don't know, I said slowly. But deep down, a sick feeling was rising in my stomach. Could Mama Rose have been hiding a scandal all this time? The next morning, I dug through the house with a new urgency. I went through every drawer, every shelf, every stack of old papers and boxes. Finally, in a compartment under the floorboards in her bedroom closet, I found something. A birth certificate. But not mine. Sean Emmanuel Grant. Mother, Linda Grant. Father, undisclosed. That's when it hit me. Linda was Mama Rose's youngest daughter. My aunt, that made Sean my cousin. But why didn't the birth certificate list a father? And why would that be enough to make Mama Rose threaten him years later? I flipped the document over. Taped to the back was a small note in Mama Rose's handwriting. He's not who he thinks he is. Protect him anyway, but keep the truth buried. It didn't make any sense. Who wasn't who they thought they were? I stared at the note until a name from the attic letter came back to me. H. Easton. What if H. Easton wasn't just some shady associate? What if he was Sean's father? Suddenly, my mind spiraled. If Sean was H. Easton's son, and Mama Rose knew that, and if the land deal somehow involved Easton, then Sean had a claim to the property too. Maybe even more than I did. The truth didn't settle. It exploded in my chest. That's why everyone was mad about the will. Not just because I inherited the house, but because they believed I took his inheritance. If Sean believed I was the reason he didn't get what was rightfully his, then I was more than just a threat to him. I was the target. And now I had the proof. Deja looked at me. You're not staying here tonight, are you? I looked out the window. The sun was setting, and someone was walking up the driveway. Sean! Deja slammed the laptop shut, as we both ducked behind the curtain. My heart pounded so loud, I was sure it echoed off the walls. Sean was halfway up the driveway, his figure outlined in the dusk. His pace was steady, determined. He wasn't here for a friendly visit. Jada, Deja whispered. We need to call someone. The cops, your mom, anybody. I shook my head. No time. I grabbed the flash drive, the letter from the tin box, and the birth certificate. Everything that could expose what we'd uncovered. Deja snatched her car keys off the counter. The knock came. Firm, measured, like he wasn't worried about whether I'd open the door. He expected me to. I know you're in there, he called through the door. His voice muffled but calm. Let's not make this harder than it has to be. I motioned for Deja to sneak out the back. Get to the car, if I don't come out in 5 minutes. Drive, take this stuff and go. But Jada, no time. She hesitated, then bolted. I took a deep breath and opened the door a crack. Sean stood there, hands in his coat pockets, eyes scanning the living room behind me. You've been digging. I didn't respond. You found the tape, didn't you? He asked, his tone darkening. And the letter. You lied to everyone, I said. Mama Rose didn't leave you out of the will by accident. She was protecting something, or someone. He stepped forward, and I blocked the doorway. That land was mine, he hissed. I was promised, by Easton, by my mother. Do you think you deserve it more because your name was written in ink? That house, that land was my legacy. Then why didn't she leave it to you? He didn't answer. Instead, he smiled. Because she was afraid of what I'd become. He leaned in closer. She was right to be. Then he shoved me back. I stumbled, hitting the floor. And by the time I looked up, he was gone. Not inside the house, not on the porch. Gone. But something was left on the doorstep. A single manila envelope. I picked it up and slowly opened it. Inside was a picture. Me sleeping from last night. Someone had been inside. I dropped the envelope as cold fear ran through my veins. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about survival. I slammed the door shut, locked every bolt, and pulled the curtains closed. My skin crawled, that photo me, asleep in my own bed, meant Sean had already been inside. He wasn't just watching me, he'd been near me, close enough to breathe the same air, while I was defenseless. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from Deja. I'm parked 2 streets over. Are you okay? Should I call someone? Don't leave, I texted back. He was in the house last night, I have proof. Seconds later, her reply came through. We need to end this, Jay, before someone really gets hurt. I shoved the envelope and its contents into my backpack and grabbed the car keys. But before I left, I yanked open the hallway closet. Behind the old coats and dusty umbrellas, hidden in a false panel, was Mama Rose's hunting rifle. She never fired it in my lifetime, but she cleaned it like it was sacred. Now I understood why. I wasn't going to use it, not unless I had no other choice. I crept out the back and slipped into Deja's car. She floored it before I even shut the door. We need to get out of this town, she said, speeding past the old grocery store and into the woods. You can't stay here another night. But I wasn't ready to run. I need to see Easton. Deja whipped her head toward me. What? H. Easton, the man from the letter. The man who may be Sean's father. If anyone knows why Mama Rose changed her will, it's him. But he disappeared years ago. No one's heard from him. I know where he is. Her jaw dropped. You do? I pulled a crumpled paper from my pocket. Something I'd found tucked inside Mama Rose's Bible. A business card, on the back. Scribbled in her handwriting. E only trusts people who know the code. Below that, 3 words. Crimson Harvest 13. We drove in silence, heartbeats pounding like war drums. The sun was setting again. And somewhere on the outskirts of Briar's Edge, a man with answers was waiting. What we didn't know yet was that he wasn't alone. The road curved into the dense forest, like a tunnel carved through secrets. The deeper we drove, the more the signal bars on my phone disappeared, one by one, until we were completely cut off. Deja's grip on the steering wheel was tight, her knuckles white. You sure about this? What if this guy's just as bad as Sean? I don't think Mama Rose would have left a code if she didn't trust him at some point. Besides, I paused, looking out into the woods. He's the only one left who might tell the truth. We finally reached the old farmland. A rusted iron gate marked the entrance. On the cracked wooden sign, barely legible, Crimson Harvest, private property. I guess this is it, Deja muttered. We parked just outside the gate. I took a deep breath, adjusted the straps on my backpack, and walked up to the intercom box, hanging crookedly on the post. No names, no buttons. Just a speaker and a keypad. I typed in Crimson Harvest 13. A loud buzz, then silence. Then, the gate creaked open. My legs felt like jelly as we walked up the long gravel path to a weathered farmhouse, surrounded by fields overgrown and wild. The porch light flickered on, even though the sun hadn't fully set. The front door opened. A tall man in his late 60s stood there, thin, pale, with a sharp nose and eyes that had seen too much. Jada, he said, not a question. A confirmation. She told me you'd come. I stared. You're H. Easton. He nodded. Come in quickly before they follow you. Deja and I exchanged glances. Easton didn't answer. He simply led us into the living room and bolted the door behind us. On the walls were newspaper clippings. Maps, photos, dozens of them, some circled in red ink. Some marked with Rose, Sean, and even my name. You're in danger, Easton said, but not just from Sean. I swallowed hard. Then who? He looked at me grimly. From your mother. I froze. My mother, I repeated. Deja whispered beside me. What does he mean, Jada? Easton motioned for us to sit, and then walked over to a large wooden cabinet. He opened it and pulled out a dusty binder labeled Legacy, Rothwell Line. She's not who you think she is. He began, his voice calm but heavy. Rose wasn't just protecting her land. She was protecting you. From a history you were never meant to know. He flipped through the binder until he found a newspaper clipping from over 20 years ago. The headline read, Local heiress dies in fire, daughter missing. He turned the page. There, attached with a rusted paperclip, was a birth certificate. I leaned in. The mother's name wasn't Cynthia Hall, the name I had always known. It was Delilah Rothwell. Your mother assumed a new identity after the fire. Easton said. She ran, changed her name, and raised you like none of it happened. But Rose, she knew the truth. And when she found out you were Delilah's daughter, she rewrote the will. Why would she protect me, if my mother was hiding something? Because you're not like her. He said. Delilah was part of something terrible. The Rothwell family controlled this town for generations, through money, manipulation, and intimidation. The land Rose owned was the last piece they didn't control. When she found out who your mother really was, she feared history would repeat itself. My throat tightened, but my mom, she's never been cruel. Easton's eyes softened. Not yet. But power changes people, especially when they feel it slipping through their fingers. Deja whispered, so Sean. He was a pawn, used by both Rose and Delilah. But he's snapped now. He wants revenge. He thinks everything was stolen from him. Easton walked to the fireplace and pulled down a framed photo. Inside the frame, behind the picture, was a hidden flash drive. This has the original will, the one Rose wrote before she died. It proves her intentions, names, everything. Before I could speak, there was a sharp knock on the door. Easton stiffened. A second knock, louder. Then a voice. Jada, it's your mother. Open the door. My blood ran cold. The voice outside the door was unmistakable. My mother. But it wasn't warm, it wasn't pleading. It was sharp, cold, measured. Open the door, Jada, we need to talk. Easton pressed a finger to his lips and whispered, Don't, she doesn't know I have the drive. I stepped back from the door, my chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. My mind was racing. Everything I thought I knew about my family, my life, had been turned inside out. She's not going to go away, Deja whispered. Another knock, firmer this time. I know you're in there. I stepped forward. I needed answers. I needed to face her. Against Easton's protest, I opened the door, but only slightly, keeping the chain locked. She stood there in a cream-colored coat, perfectly composed, her eyes calculating. Sweetheart, she said, why are you hiding in a stranger's house like some fugitive? You lied to me, I said, my voice trembled. About everything, your name, your past, what happened with Grandma. Her eyes flicked past me. So he told you. Why didn't you ever tell me who you really were? She didn't flinch. Because I didn't want you to carry my sins. I ran for your sake. But you wanted Rose's land. That's why you were so upset about the will, isn't it? She looked away, silent for a moment. Rose stole that land from my family. No, Easton interrupted, stepping into view. Your family forfeited it, out of shame. You know what happened at the Harvest House. Her expression cracked, just slightly. That wasn't me, that was my father. I had nothing to do with it. But you covered it up, Easton said. Tears stung my eyes. So you used Sean. Manipulated him. Let him think he deserved it all. He was disposable, she said flatly. Just like Rose thought you were. I stepped back stunned. That's when Easton handed me the flash drive. Your grandmother wanted you to have this. Do what's right, Jada. I looked my mother in the eyes. And for the first time in my life, I didn't see the woman who raised me. I saw the woman who made me forget who I was. I'm not you, I said, closing the door. Behind me, Deja let out a shaky breath. What now? I looked at the flash drive in my hand. Now we tell the world the truth. A month later, I stood on the courthouse steps, reporters buzzing like flies. The contents of the flash drive had unraveled decades of corruption, fraud, and intimidation tied to the Rothwell legacy. The land was returned to its rightful heirs. Sean was arrested, so was my mother. And me. I wasn't just Jada anymore. I was the last living Rose. Please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories.